Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Azula, Toph and Ty. Part 4. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. You can call me Hisoka. The now named mystery person introduced himself as, "Once we arrive in Fire Nation country I'll free you all then." This little statement elicited various reactions, the most vocal being Sokka. What? You just said you were going to free us. Now suddenly you're going to wait until we're in the heart of enemy territory. Hisoka merely chuckled at Sokka's outburst. This will be the easiest way to enter enemy territory without having to risk any of you losing your lives in the process. Not that most of your lives mean anything to me. That and the last thing we want to do is to alert Naruto before we began gathering our forces. At my current level I might be able to fight him to a standstill, even if he uses his paths, but not for long. I haven't recovered enough chakra since our last encounter. You've all seen what he could do, right? After struggling with whether or not to ask, Aang decided to go for it. Can you take a message to our allies? Aang knew there was something off about this man, about this Hisoka. But the guilt at failing time after time again, and the fact his own desires prevented him from fully mastering the Avatar state and leading to the gang's capture. So many things filled his mind along with fears. About Naruto's insinuations of what could happen to Katara filling the airbender's mind. Only now having time to think had he truly began to understand all the implications of what Naruto had said over the past few weeks. And there was also the fact that Naruto had no reason to keep Sokka or the rest of the freedom fighters alive. Not to mention he also lost his earthbending teacher as well. The fear of Naruto taking away anyone else from him planted a seed of fear into Aang. So he agreed to work with this person, even when his own instincts and his past lives were telling him, yelling at him that this was a bad idea. Make sure this message of yours has everything that needs to be said. I will not be returning until I have to break you all from your confinements. When Hisoka had left to contact the Water Tribe's siblings' father and other benders, as a last-ditch effort to build an army for the day of invasion, there was nothing left to pass the time, but to examine things that had been said in the past few days. Katara, Aang hesitantly started. What did you mean? Back in the catacombs? What do you mean? Katara as well hesitated, hoping Aang wasn't going to bring up that. Unfortunately for her that was exactly what Aang was referring. You shouted to Naruto something earlier. In fact I can't help but wonder when Naruto could have ever had time to convince Toph to betray us, seeing as you were always with her. Did the two of you run into each other? Now no longer dealing with the threat of immediate danger, Aang could ask the questions that had gathered in the back of his mind. What? When was this? A rather aghast Sokka demanded as he turned to Katara. Did he do that freaky mind thing that Hisoka guy suggested? No. Katara snapped at her brother. Starting to feel emotional as she thought back to that moment. When you guys weren't around when it was me and Toph. The name of the earthbending came out like gravel. Katara was still coming to terms with what was happening and was hoping, wishing what that guy Hisoka said was truth. That as much as it pained for her to ever consider that Toph was being manipulated. She knew it was selfish and a rather dark thought, but the thought of her losing another important person yet again to the Fire Nation was another scar her heart couldn't handle. He offered us to come with him, and it wasn't like he was threatening us or anything. He was our friend once and I was thinking, hoping that maybe it would be possible we didn't have to be enemies and that maybe we could convince him that we didn't have to be enemies anymore. Yeah, we wouldn't be in a prisoner cell left to rot with our only hope some suspicion guy whose face we haven't seen. Sokka grumbled as he leaned back against one of the walls. He then slid down the wall and dropped into a sitting position as his ankles resting sideways on his knees which were brought to his chest. Why didn't you bring this up before? Aang couldn't help but wonder why Katara didn't tell them. If they had known then maybe, just maybe things would have been different. Or was it insecurity that he would lose her like his Sifu to the mysterious blonde? He didn't seem to be interested in attacking us. He didn't join in on the attack of the wall, so I didn't think it was important. I mean we were focusing on other things. She said, keeping care not to mention that in a small way she might have been responsible for Toph betraying them and she wasn't sure if Aang or Sokka would have reacted. Anyway it isn't going to change things. We have to worry about staying strong and coming up with what we're going to do come invasion day. While this was going on Naruto and Mai were on a balcony. They were enjoying the sight of the crescent moon. Mai decided to take this chance and be bold, taking the blonde's hand, pulling it onto her thigh. She wanted to kiss him, to see how it would feel and what feelings she would have. Shortly after Zuko's banishment the blonde had comforted the forlorn girl and she had begun developing something of a crush on him. She had already admired the blonde and before she knew it that admiration had started to become something else. Suddenly he turned to face her as if he read her thoughts. All things considered Mai began to become a little paranoid as for all she knew the blonde had mind-reading powers. It seemed like he had every damn other power there was. They sat there close together, bodies touching, each of them sort of leaning into the other. Sometimes physical contact said things that words couldn't. Mai knew that she would never feel comfortable with Naruto unless she could trust him. Trust him not to use her. Trust him not to leave again. Though at the same time she couldn't say she was happy about the situation. She wasn't sure how she felt being just another girlfriend. To being just another lover. How could she stack in comparison to Ty Lee or Azula? She wasn't the bright cheery girl who everyone found interesting or the powerful and cunning royal princess. She was the gloomy girl who hardly anyone paid attention to or wanted to deal with. She wasn't sure if she became a member of Naruto's little family he would find her interesting. As if he could read her thoughts and sense her uncertainty, Naruto's hand came a rest under Mai's chin. He angled his face so their lips were even and he went forward. Mai closed the distance and pressed her lips against his. It wasn't the fireworks and earth-shaking event she was expecting, but it did cause her body to shudder. His hand crept down Mai's back and rested in the middle of it. Her fingers trailed through his spiky hair, one of his lips grazed her lower lip, causing the kiss to end and Mai to look rather flush. "Sorry," he murmured. "I like to nip things," he added with an impish. "He's not lying on that end." The voice caused Mai to jump up and away from the blonde and tried to calm herself. "Hello, Toph." Naruto morosely greeted the bender. He had just picked up on her presence and wondered what she was doing over here. Probably grew tired of dealing with the people at the party, then again parties like that probably reminded her of her past life. "So I see you've been working quite fast," she said with a cheeky grin. "Anyway, you promised me a dance," she said as she rested her balled fists on her hips. "Well, I should go," Mai said as she left to go collect herself. "Good night." She bid them both good night before heading out. "What was that about? And since when do you dance?" he asked her as Toph sauntered over to the blonde. "Okay, so I don't dance, just wanted to get you alone so we can spend some time together. I figure hanging out with you would be more interesting than some boring party. Nothing but a bunch of nobles kissing fast and talking about nothing." She hugged herself as she looked out into the landscape without actually looking. "Yeah, you're right. Boring party," he said as he wrapped an arm around her. Toph nestled against him without saying a word. Thinking back to it, the last time Toph had been at a party was when she was with Katara. He then realized why Toph seemed so apprehensive since the celebration had begun. "Forget about the party. Let's focus on us. Want to do the vision gain jutsu again? Is there anything you want to see?" she asked as Toph spent a few silent minutes thinking about it. "Yeah, I do, but without the vision thing just yet. I'm trying to get used to that, so let me take a feel for a moment," she said as she requested to see his face. Naruto nodded and sat at a bench as Toph stood in front of him. Naruto sat patiently, exhaling a soft breath as the cool nice air grazed against his skin. He watched as Toph slowly reached out to his face. Toph's hands were rather small, the thought was rather stray and unusual as it was an observation he had before. Then again, Toph was rather well developed in the figure apartment. Considering her personality, you would think she would be taller with a more boyish look to her, but Naruto wasn't going to complain. Sometimes tomboys grew up into beautiful flowers, but as far as one could tell between her foul language and other things, she was a tomboy through and through. Naruto then felt the skin of her palm. Toph was not one for lotions, creams, or anything of that nature. The skin was blistered with many smooth calluses formed below her fingers and on the heel. "Your forehead feels kind of warm." "My temperature is slightly warmer than others because of my condition. Nothing to be alarmed about." He informed her as Toph nodded and continued her exploration. Her finger then gently glided down to his eyes. "And your eyes are slightly more slanted than a person's normally is as well. The features are prominent because of my mother. Let's just say my features are a result of my heritage," he said as Toph's fingers went up to his ears. "The whiskers give it away, really," he said with a grin as her fingers went to his cheek. "Thinking about it, it's not like I have anyone's face to compare to yours. Just ask Ty Lee, I'm sure she'd be happy to let you do it." Toph then cradled the side of Naruto's face in her palm and rubbed her thumb along the right cheek, slowly and gently, as her thumb trailed through the whiskers marks. After that she moved down to Naruto's mouth, running her index finger along her bottom lip in a soft fluid motion. From top lip to bottom lip she absorbed every detail of his face. During the examination, Naruto found himself on his back as her fingers rested on his throat, her fingers pressing firmly against the side of his neck and trailed down to his collarbone and then to his navel. Naruto softly breathed in and out. His heart rate kept even and his breathing going in a soft rhythm until her hand suddenly cupped his crotch, causing him to shudder and to jump slightly. His eyes shot up and he saw the smirk on Toph's face. "Someone is sensitive," she teased as he seemed to grow in her hand. Dear old modesty didn't seem to be something Toph was too concerned about. "Oh my dear earthbender. Two people can play that game," Now most people would have worn an "oh crap" expression upon seeing Naruto's face, but since Toph couldn't see, she only had his voice tone to go on. Before Toph could do anything, he had scooped her up in his arms. Toph let out a string of curses and threats as Naruto laughed. He knew that when Toph was off the ground she couldn't see, but at the same time it wasn't like he would allow anything bad to happen to her, and she had to have known as well. "If you don't want me to punch you in the sack, you'll put me down right now," she shouted, doing her best to send the blonde a menacing glare while doing her damnest not to cringe. She wouldn't dare give him the satisfaction. Naruto though did not give in to threat so easily and let Toph drop slightly, resulting in her letting out a small chirp of fear and wrapping her arms tightly around Naruto's neck. Though, Naruto's fun soon ended when Toph did something completely unexpected. She bit his cheek. She tonking bit him. Naruto let out a cry and nearly stumbled forward, just catching himself in a crouch with the two of them a few inches from the ground. "Spoil sport," he grumbled as he set her down and began rubbing his cheek. "You're just being a little dot, I didn't bite you that hard," she argued, trying to deflect the attention from her to him. "Hey. You were the one freaking out." Toph folded her arms and remained stubborn. "I did not freak. I simply asked you to put me on the ground. Before or after you began choking the life out of me?" He teased her as Toph shot forward and attempted to strangle him. She was stubborn, too stubborn to admit the depth of her blooming feelings. She was not going to let him make her all bubble-headed and girly, damn it. What started with her trying to choke him soon devolved into them wrestling for some reason. Toph didn't care much for these new fancy clothes of hers getting dirty. She didn't feel all that comfortable in any clothes but her combat clothing, and now that she knew what it looked like green. She was having so much fun, in fact, that she lost track of time, but considering how the time was spent she didn't mind. The party soon began winding down and the guests were bid goodbye. "Care to dance with me?" The request itself wasn't what surprised him but the person asking him. "Huh?" he asked, dumbfounded by the request. Some time ago Toph had left, mentioning that she was going to turn in for the night, which left him doing anything but to see what was going on. "The Royal Fire Academy for Girls taught us the art of dance, and I hate for all that teaching to go to waste," Azula recalled as she waited not so patiently for a response. "Well." Naruto surmised that Azula must have been bored, or this was her attempt to try and be more social. Looks like all his prodding wasn't going to waste her after all. "Okay," he said as he took her hand and they went out to the center of the room. They danced to the music as she rested her head against his chin. He placed his chin against the top of her head. Though because it was so late at night it only made sense that during a flurry of kisses that they made way back to his room. Kisses, gasps, and groans filled the room as they dropped down to the bed. Naruto's lips traveled downwards to kiss the hollow of her neck, eliciting a soft moan from her. Naruto cupped her wrists in his palms while he continued placing kiss after kiss along her neck. Naruto undid the sash of her clothing, revealing her bound wrists. Naruto used his nails to rip the wrapping to reveal her bosom. He began to nip at her rosy peach nipples as he used his hands to strip her of her clothing. Suffice to say that tonight turned out to be a fantastic night. The frightened and bound girl found herself cloaked in darkness, her hands bound behind her back by rope and her legs chained. Only the sounds of phantom steps kept her company, letting her know that someone else was in this unnamed and unknown site. "This world is rather interesting." The voice finally spoke as a finger trailed along the naked skin of the girl. Wordless protest uttered from her gagged mouth. His nails began to dig into the wrist of the girl. Screams of pain left her gagged mouth as the skin was ripped and blood drew from the wound. The person licked his fingers, guzzling the blood down his throat. "I would like to thank you for your contribution, my dear, as it is so lonesome not having peons to praise me and do my bidding. It's such a tiring thing," he said as he placed one hand under her chin and the other on top of her head. "But don't worry. Your mini-school life will be part of a greater destiny, as you will have the honor of bringing me back to my former glory." And with that, he snapped her neck in a way that kept her alive without doing any damage to the spinal cord. "It's time to put the next phase of my plan to work," he smirked. Back at the Earth Kingdom, Naruto was taking every moment to ravage Azula's body. She was not only beautiful, but dangerous and unpredictable in a way that was captivating to him. She had a certain something that kept him coming back for more. Her warm breath against his neck sent shivers down his spine as her teeth playfully nibbled on his ear, her long polished nails making marks at his back, her soft skin heating up as it came into contact with him. This beauty was one of grace, much like her azure flames. Her fighting style allowed her slick black hair to never fall out of place, her royal armor and golden hairpin always looked perfectly maintained, enhancing her regal features. A gasp erupted from her lips as he entered her warm body. His hands roamed her body as the heat from their passion began to fill the room. That passion would give birth to power, and power was something his lover loved to control. Her passion for it was so great that it was a sight to let her take control. She became a seductive temptress that would drain him dry of everything. A slow smile spread across Azula's shadowed lips. Beneath her, Naruto groaned from her touches, at her attempts to work his beep as she bristled with confidence. Any time she was in control, it was a delicious and enthralling experience. All the power in the world beneath her, sensitive to her touch, and he filled her thirst for power and accomplishment. The thrill of it all was almost hard to keep contained within her. The pendulous movements of her freaks enticed him, urging him to caress them. Azula groaned as his beak pressed against her. She wet her lips and let them briefly touch the warm, soft skin of his neck as his hands came to rest on the small of her back. In no time at all, the sound of slapping flesh echoed throughout the room and the heavy aroma effects permeated the air. Their thrusts quickened as their breathing became heavier. Naruto then began to caress, once again as they grounded against each other, creating even more delicious friction. Like many young lovers, they were soon spent and cuddled up next to each other. As morning came, Naruto slept peacefully as Azula stroked her lover's hair. She had come a long way from who she once was, and it was thanks to the man with her. Who protected her, looked after her, and loved her. The only man she considered worthy of her and fathering the children she dreamed of. The only one worthy of ruling the world by her side, the only man she would ever be intimate with, capable of making her submit in ways no other man would be able to do. All she had to worry about now was keeping her father none the wiser about her plans, so she could make her move. In the Fire Nation, a single Fire Nation soldier entered the throne room, promptly falling to one knee in a show of respect. He did not make eye contact and waited for the Fire Lord to address him before rising. Colonel Chuisei, I will be brief, the Fire Lord began, time is of the essence, and what I'm offering you is a great honor. Chuisei stood and nodded as he waited for his lord to finish. From his birth to his very name, meaning loyalty, Chuisei was raised to serve the royal family in any way possible. Any less would result in a loss of honor. My daughter, Princess Azula, has accomplished something that will go down into history. The impenetrable city, Ba Sing Se, has fallen. The Avatar captured and the elite Dai Li have now been recruited to our side. I have already sent out a contingent for permanent colonization to make sure any unforeseen elements will not affect our new city. Chuisei listened patiently as Azai continued. Now that my daughter has proved her usefulness and has essentially brought an end to this war, it's time that she fulfills her other duty, to continue the royal line. My lord. Chuisei started in shock, lifting his head. There are rumors of my daughter having a consort of sorts, and I want to see if there is any truth to these accusations. I believed that rumors of some mysterious youth whose power were greater than his were gross exaggeration, fabricated by the Earth savages to unnerve the Fire Nation. While Azula had indeed mentioned weeks ago that she had run into a young man with unusual fighting potential, if he indeed had these powers that the rumors suggested, she would have informed him a long time ago. Unless like a very crafty and worthy successor to the line, she was planning a coup of sorts. On one hand, outrage filled him that Azula would overstep her place and dare challenge his authority. On the other hand, he was proud of her in a way only a man like him could be at the fact that she had taken to his teachings so well and was more like him than her banished brother could ever be. As such, I am invoking the marriage rites as not only her father, but the lord of the Fire Nation, to begin the courting rites of Anai. Chuisei remained silent. The courting rites of Anai were a tradition that dated back to several centuries where the father or oldest male guardian of a woman could prevent a stain on their honor if the girl is thought to be in a relationship with a male the initiator did not approve of. This tradition was started when a young royal heiress fell in love with a street vendor and dishonored both her family and the family of the young man who she was engaged to at birth. Looking for a way to rectify the situation, both men approached the then Fire Lord to save face, as rumors of the daughter's activities were becoming widespread. As such, the courting rites of Anai was established to save face. The chosen man of the initiator and the accused would partake in Anai Kai, with the winner having the right to take the girl as his bride and the loser embracing death. The winner would also remove her from the initiator's family, with her becoming a wife to a new family and her past sin absolved by the Fire Lord, the honor of all those involved restored. I have chosen you as my champion. Upon winning, you will have the utmost honor of becoming the husband of Princess Azula. We will discuss the exact contents of your dowry on a later date. Of course, my lord, whatever you wish. Chuisei felt honored that he, above all others, chosen to marry into the royal family. For marrying into the royal family meant that you became a member of that family, despite tradition normally dictating the woman joined the man's family. Chuisei realized that with the war essentially won and Azula within marriage and childbirthing age, it would only make sense that she would be expected to make sure the family line as soon as possible. For reasons no one would dare ask, Azai would take no other woman as his wife. He was quite insistent on making his daughter as powerful as possible, as if there was a secret that only he knew and it was somehow connected to his children. Surely Azai could bear another son to groom as his successor, but he chose not to, and Chuisei knew it was not his place to question his lord. As a citizen of rich blood, this was the greatest thing he could hope for. And again, the problem was more of Princess Azula herself than the sudden offer. Azula was proud, powerful, and very cunning. With a few stern words, she had broken many men and women and was quite strong-willed. She was a warrior and, while attractive, she was not an ideal wife. She was not taught to cook, clean, or her place, the colonel mused. At the age of 24 he had learned much from his father, uncle, and grandfather about a man's right in the place of others, and, though he would never admit it out loud, he never liked the thought of someone so young being given so much control over Fire Nation troops. Such thoughts would have had him burned for treason, but he was taught a man with power, political pull, and royal blood could have anything. As such, he took those beliefs to heart and enjoyed the challenges life had placed before him, like when he joined the now honorless Yan-Ra on the raid to the southern water tribes and had his fun with the savages, as the Water Nation citizens were often called. Chusei supposed he would have some fun breaking in the Fire Nation princess. Back within the Earth Kingdom, the Naruto copy and June were camping out in the forest once more. They were close to their target and knew they would find her in the next town, so they had opted to rest for the night. Rather than sleeping peacefully, however, June found herself waking up covered in hot sweat and on the verge of orgasm, another rather steamy dream taking up her thoughts. June was bound by her hands and legs, her pants pulled down. Naruto's hand came crashing down on June's voluptuous backside, repeatedly striking the bare flesh and producing a gorgeous pink glow. Later that night June found she was lost in thought. "What the hell kind of effect are you having on me?" she asked as she looked down at the sleeping blonde. No matter what, she was always in control, only letting him be on top for brief moments before she fought for control. She always had control in these matters no matter what. She could not be weak. She could not be dominated. Yet, her body was betraying her thoughts, with her freese jutting into her nightgown, her womanhood moist and warm, and her hair in a wild, sweaty mess. Upon the next morning, it didn't help that Naruto seemed able to pick up on it. With Nyla heading off to take a drink, the two of them went off for a walk to stretch their legs. They walked around the shaded forest, the pleasant sound of dead leaves crunching beneath their feet. "You reek of desire," he suddenly stated. June scowled. "Is that all you care about?" "Fex." She bristled as he chuckled. "Their stench wakes me up at night." Moving to her side he left his hand hooked around her. His fingers traced her form, trailing up her stomach and nearly cupped her freest before she shook out of his grasp. "Naruto," she warned, glaring at him. Memories of domination from that dream played in her mind. "What?" he asked innocently, grinning at her like the idiot he once was, but liked to play up to get people to let their guards down. June bit her cheek and let out a snort as she quickened her pace. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing how much of an effect he had on her. The next thing she knew he had her pinned to a tree as a predatory-like look formed on his face. "I didn't say you could leave, did I?" he asked as he placed a lingering kiss on her neck, his canine scraping against her neck as it trailed along her flesh. "And you will refer to me as Uzumaki-sama," he said as he used one hand to quickly pin both her arms above her while using the other to undo her sleeveless bounty hunting dress. "Ooh, someone is getting bold," June cooed, trying to play off the fact that she was extremely aroused now. "What did I tell you to call me?" he demanded, his eyes flashing a dangerous red. Put off, June decided to humor him. "Uzumaki-sama." She answered him with a look that was a mixture of smugness and lust. While she wasn't going to break like a weak-willed person, she couldn't help but decide to see where things are going to go. Biting her lip, she did nothing as he undid the rest of her clothing. Her outfit consisted of a dark brown sleeveless bounty hunting dress that hugged her figure with matching tight pants and boots. She also had a pair of fingerless gloves that stopped at her biceps, and on both her shoulders, she wore red coiling snake tattoos. To complete her look, she wore gray eyeshadow that brought attention to her eyes. Her bindings torn loose as Naruto pressed his face into her bosom. His tongue traced along her right freest, swirling across the nipple. "Is that it, Naruto?" she taunted when he suddenly roughly grabbed one of her freests. "Oh, trust me, it's far from over," he said, giving her right nipple a slight twist, causing her to groan as he forced her on the tree. "And I told you to call me Uzumaki-sama," he hissed as he grabbed her and forced her over a nearby tree trunk before he tore her pants from her form. "Damn, you're bold." Lemon scene happened. After another session or two, the two of them made their way back to camp where Nyla was waiting for them. "So what made you so bold tonight?" June couldn't help but wonder as they began packing everything away. "The woman I thought of as a grandmother taught me something. When it comes to sex, it's easy to give your lover what she wants, that's what a good lover would do, but a great lover would give her what she needs," he answered her in a sage-like manner. "Sounds like a wise woman," June admitted as she brought up the question. "How did you know?" "You've always been in control, or at least in control most of the time, and a strong woman such as yourself, who has been on her own for so long, would need a man who is her equal." A man who can actually dominate you and isn't afraid to relinquish control. He answered her question. Naruto's eyes suddenly narrowed as he moved into a fighting position. Who's out there? He demanded as some rustling of bushes alerted him to someone moving towards them from the 3 o'clock position. I didn't mean to startle you. The person said as she came into view. I was waiting for your encounter to finish. I've been waiting to meet you for a long time, but I needed to wait until it was safe. The woman in question had long flowing brown hair cut in a Harem cut hairstyle, wearing a light green dress lined with gold that came down to her ankles that, honestly, looked rather comfortable. She finished the outfit with sandals. Her soft peach skin and pale gray eyes were features that made her slightly stick out. So you have led us about? Naruto asked her as he relaxed his guard. He turned to June and nodded as the bounty huntress lowered her whip. So, what is your name, if I may ask? Shu. The woman confidently introduced herself. And it is an honor to meet you, great-grandfather Uzumaki Naruto. Back within the Earth Kingdom's palace, everyone was going on about their day. Azula mentioned she was going to work on the report to send to Ozai, and Mai said she had something personal to take care of. So, with Toph wanting to test herself with the Dai Li, which left Naruto and Tai Li to hang out and get to know each other. Just one bowl of noodles and some water please. Tai Li told the server with a smile. So tell me more about what this guy did. Naruto asked in amusement. The two of them were in a quaint little restaurant whose theme was that the tables and such were outside and the customers went and picked out their salads and vegetables, which were on display, while the soup were made in plain view. Surprisingly enough, Tai Li was a vegetarian and didn't believe in eating meat. And again, Naruto amended, considering her personality, which made sense. Okay right, so this boy took me to this fancy festival, right? So he bought me all this food and these cool trinkets and stuff, well, I mean, not bought, but it was this thing where you get things and you pay at the end of it. She tried to explain as she paused for a moment and thought about it. When Tai Li usually paused and thought, she had this cute look of concentration on her face. You get what I mean? Trying to. He admitted, as what she described was rather unusual. He couldn't recall an event or anything like that happening. And then, when it was over, he turned to me and expected me to pay for it. Can you believe it? She asked with a look of disbelief. I do now, he clasped the bottom part of her bottom face. I hope you Kai struck him right in the neck. Well, not too hard. I didn't want to hurt him too badly. She admitted. While Tai Li had been highly annoyed at the time, she was anything but ruthless. As Tai Li continued on, Naruto noticed a disturbing pattern of Tai Li paralyzing boys with her Kai striking, which led to some interesting thoughts. When their salad and soup was served, they continued their conversation. Naruto watched as Tai Li used her fork and placed some salad in her mouth. An energetic ball of pink. That was what her friends had called her and, upon closer inspection, Naruto couldn't help but notice how much Tai Li really stood out. For one, she had light brown hair, and since everyone in the Fire Nation, from Mai to Azula to nearly every other Fire Nation soldier, not only that, rather than gold, brown, or other typical colors, her eyes were closer to a dull blue or gray. In fact, for a moment, her eyes kind of reminded him of Hinata's, and that made him begin to wonder. She was most likely a Hyuga descendant. Between the Kai blocking and the aura thing, it could have been the result of the Hyuga bloodline thinning from so many years. That reminded him, he needed to get a map and study the geography of the world. Maybe he could find out what happened to Land of Lightning and come to understand this world a little better. Hey Tai Li. Want to help me look into something after dinner? He asked her, hoping she would agree so he could spend some more time getting to know her. Naruto and Azula found themselves on a beach in the midst of training. Because Azula couldn't adapt to chakra techniques like Tai Li and Mai, the blonde figured he could come up with some alternative ideas for her. One such idea was a summoning contract with a certain clan, that is, if he could convince them to take Kai instead of chakra. Naruto ducked under two quick bursts of flames that Azula launched. He quickly blocked the barrage using the earth wall jutsu. Using the Shinra Tensei, he blasted apart the walls, sending several chunks of wall at her. Azula easily leaped over the projectiles and did a roundhouse kick, shooting two more blue fireballs towards him. He responded with a great breakthrough, extinguishing the flames. As she landed, she created a blue whip of flame in her hand and whipped it at him. Naruto flipped over the attack, landing behind her, an amused smirk on his face. If you hope to hit me then you need to get faster, Azula-chan. Then I suppose it's time for me to take off the kid gloves, she remarked as she shot two small flame blasts, then spun and shot out a stream, to which the blonde countered with his own stream of fire. Placing her arms behind her, Azula propelled herself with a supercharged flame blast at great speed. The distance between them closed in mere seconds as daggers of fire formed in her hand. The tip of her attack scraped the tip of the blonde's nose, burning it slightly. He let out a hiss and ready to counterattack, only for the princess to do something he couldn't have predicted and shoulder tackle the out of him. Naruto couldn't help but be a little proud at the fact that Azula did something rather uncharacteristic of her usual fighting style. He was glad that he simply wasn't talking to just hear himself talk, and Azula had taken his words about being unpredictable to heart. Extinguishing her daggers, the firebender took notice of their position, her straddling his waist, and let out a victorious smirk. "It appears I win. I was going easy on you," he remarked while trying to ignore the sensations that were developing. "If you say so," she remarked as she felt a rush of heat go through her. Not only was she the victor of their spar, but she was straddling what was essentially the strongest now living warrior, and it filled Azula with sensations, which was making it rather difficult to concentrate. "Damn hormones. Are you going to let me up?" he asked, fixing his position slightly as his elbows were digging into the ground and his increasing hardness was becoming more and more clear. "I think I like our current position just fine. With you beneath me," she said as she leaned forward, her mouth slamming against his. Even without trying, Azula's words were always seductive. In a flash, they were in the ocean, resulting in Azula letting out a brief and small cry at suddenly being impacted by the cold waters. With her arms around his neck and her legs hooked around his waist, their lips greedily nibbled at each other. Their bodies ground against each other as they began to work themselves into a frenzy. Naruto's hands trailed along Azula's smooth back. She was wearing a red V-neck bikini top that showed off a bit of cleavage and tied in the front, along with bikini bottoms whose straps tied at the sides. "I think I'm becoming addicted to you," Naruto murmured as his beat threatened to tear through his swim trunks. As he finished saying that, his lips softly caressed hers. Azula moaned and opened her mouth submissively, allowing his tongue to invade her mouth. Naruto carried Azula back to the beach, not breaking their contact as they fell upon the blanket that was laid down under an umbrella. Azula nibbled at his earlobe, her hands moving from his back to his swimming trunks. She began to pull them down as his nimble fingers began undoing the straps of her bikini for yet another passionate encounter. Though, despite the peace this Naruto was experiencing, his other counterpart had found himself with troubling news some time ago. "If you were aware of us, then why have you been giving us the runaround?" June held her tongue back, wanting to say a few more colorful things, but she was sure her companion wouldn't have taken well to her insulting his descendant. "I had to avoid the enemy," Shu said as a grim look formed on her face. "This world is in danger. I saw a world of ruin. Over time, the frequency of my great-grandmother's gift decreased, but its power grew. I was told that great-grandmother Xian's gift was very powerful, as was my grandmother's, but as the years went on, the line has thinned. Our Uzumaki heritage subsided with the generations. We lost our family's longevity, and our arts faded from practice due to the momentary peace that befell the world." "You said the world was in ruin?" Nai asked her. He still wanted to know why his descendant and her teammates were sealed in this dimension, and how they managed to get here. "The voice spoke to me," she said as she brought out a silver crystal with a Uzumaki crest imprinted on it. "I think it was great-grandmother Xian warning me of a great disaster. Fire, water, earth and air. These forces united will conquer a reign most vile. The voice urged me to find the 4 links in the center, and I saw a flash. Red eyes with fangs," she said as Naruto groaned and face-palmed. "Sounds like the damn Sharingan," he swore as he folded his arms and shook his head. "But the force of air concerns me in that verse. The only force I can think of are the air nomads, and they've been wiped out by the Fire Nation. So, I can only assume this threat means the air nomads need to essentially be revived." Should Nai suddenly interrupted himself, to the concern of the two women. "Naruto, I don't like that look on your face," June remarked. He remained silent. "Say something," she barked, annoyed by his continued silence. "The only air nomad is the Avatar, a kid who's very spiritual, and unless we tie the boy down and let some Avatar fangirls take a ride on him, the air nomads aren't going to be revived anytime soon." "Isn't your primary element wind, great-grandfather?" Shu pointed out. Nai nodded. "Couldn't you theoretically help recreate the air nomads yourself?" "Well, in theory, I could train some of my children in the arts of air jutsu, but they still wouldn't be benders. This is going to pose a bit of a problem." Naruto shook his head and gathered his thoughts. "Shu, I need you to accompany me to Ba Sing Se. Your prophecy also means we need to unite the other nations, and now, we only have a few segments of Earth. We need to focus and reunite the Earth Kingdom. Then we can focus on Fire Nation." "Very well, great-grandfather," Shu replied with a submissive head nod. "Perhaps you can tell me stories about how things were in your day," she said as she joined Naruto's side. They began heading back towards camp. "Coming June?" Naruto turned his head and called to the bounty hunter, who was trying to make sense of everything she had just heard. "Might as well, maybe I can finally find some new business," she answered with a reluctant sigh. With this mission now over, she knew, with Nai in charge and with plans to unite the Kingdom of Earth, her chances of finding good work would soon become non-existent. Azula did as Naruto instructed, biting her thumb, drawing blood, and performing the same hand seals that he did. She slammed her hand on the ground, a brief burst of flame expelling from her fist as she did so, being the only way she was able to exert her Kai. When her hand slapped the ground, amidst the wisps of flame that exploded out from the sides of her hand, a puff of smoke erupted. Out of it appeared a dragon roughly twice the size of the summon Naruto used in the desert. It was a large and majestic-looking reptilian creature with the horns of a stag, sharp teeth, orange scaly skin, black eyes, 5 toes on each foot, a long serpentine body, with his tail taking 1/3 of his body, and a long snout with long flowing whiskers. "Speak, child. What is my summoner's identity?" The creature asked as it narrowed its eyes to gauge her reaction and musing whether it would have to kill the being before it. "I am Princess Azula of the Fire Nation," she calmly stated as she tried to steady her heart rate. Never before had she seen such a massive, intimidating beast. Azula was well aware of many tales about the powerful and dignified creatures were hunted to near extinction by firebenders. Azula steadied her heartbeat as she recalled Naruto's advice. Dragons respected confidence and honesty, but loathed those who were arrogant. "I have been given the honor of being chosen to become your new summoner." She had grown used to lying to manipulate people. She could do it in a blink of an eye with unferventies to the point where lies exited her mouth as often as truths. "I sense conflict deep within you. One that threatens to consume you, but you seem to be on the path to righteousness. I am Longwei, the great imperial dragon, and I will be judging whether or not you're worthy. In the coming days many of our brethren will be testing whether you're worthy. For now I will leave you with a riddle, and upon solving it, you must summon me again to give an answer. What cannot be seen, heard, tasted, or smelled, but felt? You have 3 days to decipher this riddle." The creature asked before it departed in a puff of smoke. I have to say that was quite Naruto cut himself of as he noticed Azula was about to topple over. He shot over and caught her before she fell. "Geez, how much Kai did you use?" he asked as Azula blew a strand of her hair out of her face. She was sweating lightly and trying to steady herself. "You said that boss summons required a sizable amount of chakra and, since you said that you have far larger reserves than even ninjutsu experts, I figured for me it would take about half of mine. Apparently, I slightly overestimated how much of my energy was lost from this morning activities." She answered as a smile tugged at Naruto's lips. "Slightly." A chuckle escaped his lips. "Anyway, I'm proud that you managed to pull off something of that magnitude. Did you expect anything less?" Azula countered with a beepy grin. "Let's return to the palace," he suggested as Azula eased herself out of Naruto's arms. "I think our prisoners have had a few days to stew. I want to try to convince them to align themselves with us." "And if they don't?" she asked, curious about what was going on in Naruto's mind. "Well then, I guess they'll be finding themselves in confinement until this war is over," Naruto answered her with a casual shrug as they began their trek back to the palace. As Mai silently waited for Zuko to arrive, she began reflecting on the nature of their relationship. How much she really knew of him, how much chemistry she had with him. Upon seeing how Naruto and Azula acted, though, she began second-guessing herself. She thought she knew what love was, but she had never been in a relationship before, had never take time to explore her emotions. Laughing and smiling were 2 things Azula never did before Naruto came around, and that had Mai wondering just what she had with Zuko beyond a few memories and a crush. After all, her parents' parenting style had done its job of stunting her emotional development in that department. Mai may have been spoiled, like many other wealthy girls, but she found little comfort in material needs. Her lifestyle had been very controlled. Her voice was never heard, as expected of a proper lady. She was required to be quiet, like a doll, as her father's career meant everything to her parents. Year after year, her father would climb the ranks of the Fire Nation hierarchy. Day after day of being told not to speak until spoken to and being informed that one wrong action could ruin the family had taken its toll on her, so had being rewarded for her obedience. "Are you even listening to me, Mai?" Her mother's voice droned in her head. "Marrying into a good social position is important. You should be concerned about it." Mai's mother droned on and on about clothes and hair and makeup and young men. And, of course, when her younger brother Tom was born, her parents had the son they wanted, fussing over him and practically leaving her to her own devices until they needed her to make a good impression for the royal family or something of that nature. It probably would have been a lonely experience if it wasn't for the man she called sensei. During those moments where he took her under his wing, Naruto did everything he could to make her smile. He took to training her and as a result she grew into a pretty skilled individual, being one of the few people in the Fire Nation to have the rare skill of using multiple different weapons. Unfortunately he had left before her brother had been born, leaving her to a rather boring life, with training being the only thing to keep her preoccupied the past few years. She was so lost in her thoughts she didn't even notice Zuko's arrival until he was practically in front of her. Their meeting was rather silent for the most part, as it was obvious neither of the two had much experience in this sort of thing. "You look nice." The firebender complimented awkwardly. "Thanks." Mai replied. She was wearing fancy green robes with gold trimming, with her hair pinned up by twin ornaments and light makeup, the last part courtesy of Ty Lee, who would not leave her alone unless Mai allowed her to help her in some way. "You're not too bad looking yourself." She wirily commented. "Do you know where everyone else is at?" "Azula and Naruto are training and the spirits only know what Ty Lee and that earthbender are up to." He responded in a rather hollow tone. Mai sighed, knowing that Zuko was probably still feeling guilty about what happened with his uncle. A girl's voice broke through her ruminations. "Lee," she called and approached Zuko. "Why did you ditch me at the celebration?" she asked, visible annoyance on her face that only tempered upon seeing Mai. "Who's this?" the girl asked Zuko, pointing to Mai. "Oh, hi, Jin, this is just my friend from the circus." "Yeah, she's the knife thrower." Mai couldn't help but frown. This Jin girl again. She thought in annoyance. Whoever this Jin girl was, she clearly liked Zuko. "Really?" was all Jin asked, her eyes roving from Lee's flushed face to the girl, whose gaze flickered onto her at the same moment. She shook her head and her face fell. "Maybe, I just thought you would be truthful to me for once," she said as Mai raised an eyebrow in interest. I don't want to alarm you too, but that Naruto guy has already told me a few things." She admitted with a wince as Zuko angrily swore and Mai covered the bottom portion of her face and sighed. "Where the hell does he get off?" A few more colorful exclamations left Zuko's mouth as Mai led Jin away to the side. "So, you like Zuko, huh?" Mai asked as Jin nodded with a blush. "I can understand why he lied, I just wish he could have been one to tell me," she admitted as Mai nodded in understanding. She thought it was weird Naruto did this considering he wasn't one to stick his nose in just anyone's private business, but she was definitely going to have a talk with him later. No matter how smart or powerful he was, there was still a limit to how much one had a right to meddle in someone else's life, especially if said person was a friend or precious to someone he was involved with. "I'm surprised you're talking with me and not trying to skewer me," she thoughtlessly admitted before becoming flustering and hastily adding, "Not that I think you're some crazy knife chick or anything, it's just. To be honest, part of me does want to use you for target practice," Mai casually admitted with that dark humor of hers, resulting in Jin gulping and looking nervously. "But then again, it isn't like Zuko and I are together. I had a crush on him a few years ago, and that was it. We're only here together on a date to see if anything is there. You should come along if you wish," she casually suggested as Jin's eyes widened. I couldn't," the girl replied with a shake of her head. "Nonsense, Mr. Breedy is going to need someone to keep him in line if things between us go south," the pale-skinned girl replied. This Jin girl was shorter than her, had a warmer complexion and hazel brown hair with softer features than her. With her bushy brown hair, she was the type of girl guys would go for, like Ty Lee, she thought, underestimating her own appeal, with her ebony tresses, lovely complexion and tall slender form. Zuko of course didn't take as well to Mai's suggestion of juggling two girls on a single date, maybe the fact it wasn't the sort of thing he expected her to do made it difficult for him to handle. Then there was the awkwardness of his lies being revealed and that he wasn't sure how he felt about either girl. "You finally seem to be enjoying yourself." He turned away completely. "I've missed seeing the side of you," Zuko softly spoke. Mai felt a long-held tension leave her body. Zuko cared and hadn't forgotten her. He had thought about her over the years. What did that mean, though? With Jin having left for the time being to freshen herself up, that left the two of them alone to talk. "Well, a lot has changed since the days when I used to throw mud in your face. And I can't help but wonder just what I want to do with my life." Mai could see herself being with Zuko. She could feel he wouldn't designate her to the role of just a wife. He was too kind-hearted a person, having suffered at the hands of his cruel father, to not be, but that wasn't enough anymore. Zuko's actions may have helped them down in the catacombs, but it showed he still clung to his honor and the traditions of the Fire Nation. What will become of her if she decided to be with him? He had seen and lived in the world for over 3 years and wanted nothing more than to return to the Fire Nation, to return home. But Mai wanted more than that. She wanted to be free, to express herself and see the world, and she knew trying to get Zuko to submit to what she wanted would only result in resentment growing between them. Many times, she had been drilled on what to do and what not to do for a happy marriage and to avoid the mistakes that people in her generation seemed to be committing in a growing alarm. "You kept it?" she asked wonderingly as Zuko pulled out that heart-shaped rock she had given Zuko shortly before his banishment. The prince smiled shyly, pink tinging his cheeks again. "It reminded me of you," he stated simply. They sat like that, side by side, at the fountain. Neither spoke. "We'll be leaving in a few weeks," Mai stated bluntly. She knew that simply killing Ozai would not bring an end to the war. They needed to get his supporters and those who held similar ideals in a single swoop. It's always easier to fight an enemy with a face attached to them, so easy that sometimes you forget the enemies that often hide in the shadows. Zuko nodded. I know, Mai, he said sadly. I don't even know what to do. I'm almost afraid to go home. It's what I've dreamed of for 3 years, but now I don't know how my father will react to me, and my uncle. I heard him the way he looked at me. She said as his hands clenched on his knees. He sided with the enemy, Zuko. She calmly stated. I know it must be hard, considering he's been your companion for all these years, but we all have to take responsibility for our choices. This world is changing and we'll have to change to keep up with it or be left behind, and unless you push away those doubts that hang inside your heart, you'll never be to move on in life. You have to go home and put those doubts to rest, Zuko. You're right, he admitted as he softly breathed. And that is why you should choose Jin, Mai said as Zuko's head shot up in alarm. What? The Fire Nation is your home, Zuko, but it's never felt like a home to me. It's been like a prison. I still don't know who I am. I don't know what I want or what my dream is. I need the time and the opportunity to find myself and follow my heart, and I can't do that if I'm confined to the Fire Nation. I hope you understand. She said. She swiftly placed a kiss on Zuko's forehead. Thank you, Zuko, and I'm sorry. When this war is over I need to see what's out there for me. Zuko wasn't sure what he felt at that moment. Well, maybe rejected, for one, and a little heartbroken. It's just us, huh? Jin's voice pervaded through the silent night's air. When Zuko looked up, he was awestruck. Jin looked absolutely stunning in the moon's light. She didn't wait for an answer as she sat by him and rose up her hand. Zuko pulled away slightly as Jin's gentle hand hovered over his scar. I couldn't imagine a father doing this. She said as her face fell slightly. What happened to him? Your father, I mean. He asked. Jin pulled away and looked down at the ground. It's my fault. She said as with a motion of her hand, she lifted a few rocks, causing Zuko to look on in surprise. Up until a few days ago, all earthbenders were expected to join the Dai Li. When I discovered I was an earthbender, I was too young to realize the gravity of the situation, and I wanted to show everyone. I was so proud and had no idea what would occur if I showed off my bending ability. The Dai Li showed up to take me away, but my father made a bargain. His life and servitude in exchange for mine. Tears began to stain her cheeks. The last time I saw him was 8 years ago. This was a result of Long Feng doing his best to make sure that no uprising would occur and he would retain control of the city. The incentive of being paid for information on unregistered benders made sure the unsavory sorts did their dirty work for them. With that, Zuko sat there and listened to Jin open her heart to him, still unsure just what to do where his heart was concerned. Was that? Mai hesitated for a moment to make sure she wasn't daydreaming. Wan Shai, she finished as the form of a large avian creature flew away from the palace. Yeah, Naruto answered her with a casual nod. He was standing against the side of the balcony wall. Isn't he supposed to be dead? She asked him as her mind tried to process everything her eyes were seeing. It was just a game jutsu. I was trying to provoke the Avatar into going into the Avatar state so I could gauge how strong he was. I see, so considering how he tried to kill us last time we saw him, this is a complete 180. We came to an agreement. I played upon his very weakness, his thirst for knowledge. For every year this war goes on I have to contribute a bookcase worth of knowledge or forfeit my life. In exchange I get access to the library's knowledge, which has proven quite invaluable. I see, she said before moving in front of him. She then drew back her hand and sharply slapped him, catching the blonde off guard. What was that for? He replied, looking mildly annoyed at Mai's action. For meddling in my life concerning Zuko, she answered him with some edge to her voice. She waited and judged his reaction as realization flickered to his eyes. Do you have anything to say for yourself? The last thing Mai was going to do was find herself in a relationship with a male version of Azula with the power of the Avatar, who instead of using fear, could twist your mind with logic and a kind smile. I'm sorry, he earnestly answered her before turning to the exit of the balcony. Let's go to a private room and talk about it. He suggested, you have the right to know about why I meddled, he finished as he moved aside the curtain and Mai walked forward. The two of them continued down the hall and took residence in the palace's meeting room, which was empty at that time of day. Well? She asked, waiting for him to explain why he found it fit to meddle. Forgive me, Mai, but you weren't the only one I had in mind. He began as he took a seat opposite of her. The chairs were rather stiff but sturdy, and the table was rather old, one that was decades old and finely crafted. As you're aware of, I met Jin some time ago, but I was aware of her before then. In fact, one of my paths informed me who she was when she and Zuko went on that little date. From how things looked, there wouldn't have been any closure for her if we had immediately gone back to the Fire Nation. Could you imagine how heartbroken she would have been if it turned out this Lee boy she was crushing on turned out to be the prince of the Fire Nation? How manipulated and humiliated she would have been. Also, if you and Zuko did pursue a relationship, would he be able to fully commit to it without guilt? Many relationships tend to fail due to the fact people sometimes don't find closure with their past relationships. Not to mention you have to consider how strong your feelings to the other person are and what you are willing to do for those ties. Childhood crushes and first loves aren't always guaranteed to work out. He concluded as Mai nodded. I thought of something similar. About what I want in my life, and if I did return to the Fire Nation, what would I be achieving? What would I be doing with my life? What my dream is? When would I get my chance to see the world? I guess I can understand why you did what you did, but it still affects me, and I appreciate it if you would come to me first if something like this in the future happens. She finished as Naruto nodded and smiled. You know you look all sexy when you're stern like that. He teased her only to receive a mild glare and a roll of eyes in return. If that's all, I have to go and relax for a bit before I go take care of some business, he said as Mai turned back to him, a look of curiosity formed on her face. What are you going to do? She softly asked him, her anger at him fading. I'm going to try to get the Avatar and his friends one more chance to come around, he said as he took out a green, crystal-like object and fumbled with it. It's one of the things I tend to rectify during the next few weeks. So how about it, Mai? Care to join me for an afternoon on the city? He asked as Mai nodded and decided this would be the perfect time to explore her feelings. Just let me freshen up. She told the blonde, who quickly went over to her side and pulled out her chair. Give me about an hour. She informed him, to which he softly inhaled, but to his credit, he wisely decided not to say anything. After a crisp 40 minutes had passed, Naruto was glad he waited. Mai looked absolutely stunning. She was wearing Earth Kingdom robes, a dark green with a tight-fitted bodice, showing off the outline of her frieze nicely. The two-piece green garment was tightly tied with an elaborate system of golden strings, along with a matching dark green skirt with golden trims. On her face she wore very light traces of makeup, much lighter than most teenage girls, and she was wearing some sort of scent that had a touch of vanilla and mint. Whatever the scent was, it sent shivers down his spine as he couldn't help but feel compelled to taste her. Holding out his arm, Mai interlocked hers with his as they went out into the city. Naruto decided a nice little picnic outside the palace would be rather nice for such a lovely day. Crowded, hot, and dusty, alleys brimmed with many denizens, from refugees to many middle-class citizens. As they traveled through the city, their senses were assaulted by many different scents. Walking by Smithy, their noses were stung by the scent of sweat and coal and other minerals. As they moved to some of the nicer districts, the sweet scent of tea and spices of restaurants washed over their nostrils and whet their appetites. Finally they came to a rest at a small lake with a single tree for shade. As they enjoyed the quiet meal, Naruto couldn't help but smile upon seeing Mai's light up at one of the treats he brought along. What? She replied, upon seeing his amused grin, and started to feel a bit self-conscious. I love fruit tarts. She answered as she did her damnedest not to giggle after she took another bite of the tasty pastry. Curse you, you delectable treat. My only weakness. She was shaken out of her thoughts as she suddenly found herself being whisked up in the air. What are you doing? She monotonously asked, her voice cracking slightly. No. Don't you dare. She screamed as Naruto dropped down into the lake, resulting in them being soaked. What the hell is wrong with you? Mai snapped, losing all pretenses of control, as Naruto only laughed, which further infuriated her. You think this eye? She was cut off as he spoke into her ear. I want my cute little student to express herself like she used to. He softly stated. You know you don't have to be reserved around me, Mai. He said as he pulled back and looked into Mai's eyes. Mai's voice was caught in her throat as she wasn't sure how to answer or react. She wanted to hate Naruto so much, but she couldn't. Even if she never said it, she held a good deal of resentment towards her teacher for presumably abandoning her. She was content with hating the blonde for the rest of her life, but the moment she saw him she found herself unable to. She missed him. Mai stood up, the wet cloth clinging to her figure, to which Naruto couldn't help but study her form. And maybe a few other things. He teased her with a suggestive wink as a faint blush formed on Mai's cheek, her arms promptly folded over her wrists. Why don't you use one of your crazy techniques and make a life-size portrait? She grumbled as Naruto chuckled. Nah, I'll just rely on photographic memory. He continued to tease as he snaked his arm around her waist. Now to get you out of those clothes, and no, this was not my plan all along. He added as Mai sighed. You're such a hopeless pervert. She stated, but a small smile formed on her face. And I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. Toph all the while was sitting down on the sandy yet rough ground of a training arena, not that far away from where they were. Soft breaths of air softly escaped her lips as she steadied her heartbeat. Her concentration was broken when she felt something land on her shoulder. You again, huh? She softly stated as the creature, the butterfly, softly flapped its wings. People say you're beautiful, and though I've never seen you, I believe so too. She extended her fingers as the butterfly moved to it. but not in the same way. She finished with a smile as the creature took to the air. Freedom like yours was all I ever thought I needed. The images of the other members of the gang flashed through her mind. But then. I realize freedom is a rather subjective term. Even when I will be able to see you soon, will I be able to live with the choices I made? She asked, her stone wall shields around her heart dropping and allowing her to be the girl she so desperately tried to distance herself from come out. She wasn't a proper lady. She couldn't read or write and only had a moderate grasp in math. She didn't do sleepovers or giggle or gush about boys endlessly. She didn't fantasize about weddings or lavish dresses or parties. Toph Beifrong was anything but a delicate flower. That's what her parents saw her as and she hated. So every day she fought to destroy this so-called flower from the inside out while putting on a show for her parents. The only real influences outside of her tutors and her parents were the rough and gruff crowd of the underground earthbending tournaments. Wanting so hard to erase the image of the soft-spoken docile daughter, the Beifrongs wanted Toph began emulating the behavior of those around her to the point. Instead of being polite she would be sarcastic. Instead of being submissive she would be confrontational, and instead of just being another trophy wife or decoration, she would be independent and would tell people what she thought of them no matter who they were. And she would take care of herself, instead of the delicate flower they thought she was. That's who she was always been, the tough girl that took care of herself and didn't need anyone, but yet, what was the feeling in her heart that wouldn't go away? You're feeling regret, aren't you? Toph turned and found herself face to face with Naruto. His very presence having a very calming effect. I don't know what you mean. Toph vehemently denied as Naruto reached out to grab her hand. I forced you into a decision you shouldn't have had to make. Even if I didn't agree with their choices or decisions, they were still your friends. As someone who has dealt with betrayal, I know how painful it is, but I have my reasons for doing what I did. He confessed as Toph shook her head. I made my choice and it's something I have to live with. I made the choice to move forward and make my own path. She replied as Naruto took a hold of her hand. What are you doing? She asked as he placed her hand against his chest. I don't want to hurt you, Toph. That's never been my intention, and I'm doing my best to make sure this world doesn't suffer the same fate as mine. And I want you as one of the ones by my side. You believe me, don't you? Every passing heartbeat told her to trust him. I do, if I didn't I wouldn't be here now. She answered him as a smile formed on his face. Thank you, he said as he placed his hands on her headband despite her protests. Why do you insist on hiding away that hair of yours? I know you don't like being girly or don't care about looks, but you trust me, don't you, Toph? Would it hurt to be a little soft, even if it's just around me? He asked as Toph's cheeks heated up. Well, Mr. Hair Fetish, if it'll make you happy. She cheekily remarked. I don't have a hair fetish, Naruto cried out as Toph freed her hair. Toph's hair fell to her shoulder as she took on a rather whoopish sort of look. Strands of her bangs covered her eyes, a look of hesitance framed Toph's face. Well, Naruto, do you like me better this way? She asked as a fluttering in her stomach began to occur. I find you beautiful this way, yes, but then again I've come to learn a long time ago pretty face means nothing if the person doesn't have a good heart. Being a proper lady isn't your thing, Toph, and I definitely wouldn't have you as anyone else but my gruff and beefy earthbender. Even if you really could use a bath on more frequent basis, despite all the growth Naruto gained in years, he could still be a bit of a clueless asshat at times. Something he realized when he suddenly found himself dodging a rock that was earthbent towards his head. Are you ready? He asked as they walked down through the doorway to where the members of the gang were kept. To say they didn't receive a warm welcome was an understatement. If we stop Azula, we can stop the war. Aang announced with certainty to Naruto's question of what exactly was the plan to end the war at the Day of the Black Sun. Naruto shook his head. You're wrong, Aang. Taking out Azula and expecting the war to end there is naive. Anyone worth their grain of salt realizes that it's unrealistic that a war will just end because one side's leader is captured. If one general dies, then you just replace him with another. If you simply capture Azula, then what? He has supporters or loyal soldiers who are more than willing to break him out of any stronghold or continue the war in his name. The soldiers, the ones who have fought in this war and following this campaign for generations, simply aren't just going to quit and change their minds, even if someone new were to take up the throne. The only thing you would be guaranteeing at that point is a bloody civil war within the Fire Nation itself. They would only see someone else of the royal family claiming the throne as a bid for power, and that wouldn't take care of the loyalists and such who agree with Azula's way. Only by killing Azula and his followers in one swoop can we hope to put an end to this war. He finished as an uneasy look crossed upon the gang's face along with Zuko. As far as Zuko was informed of, Naruto was only speaking a hypothetically situation to manipulate the Avatar. He still wasn't completely keyed in on the plan to end the war, as he was still unsure where his allegiance lied. I'm not a killer, Aang argued. You make it sound so simple, killing. How could you say we were the same if you could be so callous about human life? It's because I value human life so much I'm willing to kill to protect those who can't fight for themselves, Naruto snapped, before pausing and taking a deep breath. To this world I am an outsider with abilities no one else should have. I am one they would easily fear, but you Avatar, so many of the people put their fate into you and would hardly bat an eyelash if you killed the Fire Lord, then I, an unknown element did. And if you failed, an accident could be arranged the people to happen to the Fire Lord and the people would hail you as a hero, not to mention hail the new Fire Lord who would take the measures to make reparations for what the nation itself has done to the nations of earth and water to begin a new era of peace and understanding. And maybe one day the people would stop depending on one person and realize their potential once again. When one person, one who is naive and doesn't understand pain or truth, can take complete control of the world, then we as a people, we as the human race become weak and complacent. But not everyone is a fighter. Not everyone wants to participate in war or the hardships that come with them. Naruto cut Aang off. And that's another flaw. Strength doesn't always come with the ability to fight. By your nature you are defensive and like to evade by finding another solution instead of facing things head on. Now tell me, if this invasion would have gone according to plan and you encountered Azai, what would you have done? You may be a pacifist, but that doesn't mean members of the Water Tribe or Earth Kingdom are. Would you have forced them to play a defensive game because you don't like killing and risk their lives against Azai's vengeful loyalists when they fight tooth and nail to reclaim their kidnapped ruler? He asked, realization dawning on Aang's face as he realized he and the others hadn't thought that far ahead. But can't you just seal their bending? If you could seal theirs like ours then there would be no need to kill. Katara spoke up in Aang's defense. One of the first things they tried to do upon realizing that they were captured was try to bend their way out of the prison and found themselves unable to. Naruto shook his head in TSK. You know it's called a war for a reason and not an extended training exercise or sparing. People die and you of all people should know that. He emphasized in a tone of finality causing her to recoil slightly. Hey don't you Sokka was cut off as the wall next to him was cracked by a powerful Shinra Tensei and Naruto's nonsense gauge which made even the normally brave strategist think twice about continuing to speak. Though, instead of Naruto continuing, Azula threw in her 2 cents. Even without power my father still has his political connections. A militarized nation isn't just going to stop an era-long war just because you preach about peace and kindness. Far too many high-rank military men and nobility would have something to say when all the money they placed into this campaign for land, materials, and such stopped all of a sudden. Do you really think that if my father was the only person in the Fire Nation that truly wanted war, that members of the Fire Council wouldn't have arranged an accident of sorts to place a puppet ruler in their stead? I mean you're more than well aware what happened with that Earth King buffoon and Long Feng. Suddenly a tremor coursed through the dungeon with small cracks of earth and dirt fell down from the ceiling. What the hell? Naruto cried out as another tremor occurred. 2 Dai Li agents appeared. Lord Naruto. A tidal wave has appeared and attacked. There's a strange creature attacking the palace. Our soldiers are being slaughtered. What? Just what we needed. He snarled as he turned to Toph. I don't know what the hell is going on but we're heading out. I trust you don't mind hanging back and watching them. What the hell? You're putting me on grunt duty? She asked as another tremor echoed and nearly threw her off balance. Then again I am not a fan of the tidal waves. If you two are done with your lover's spat we might want to save the palace before we're submerged underwater. Azula deadpanned. With that the others hastily exited the dungeon, leaving Toph to guard the prisoners. You were a friend, how could you betray us? It's complicated, Toph answered Katara. To walk my own path. The only way. Toph stopped as she sensed a rather unfamiliar presence. Whoever the presence belonged to, it unnerved her a bit. Before she could react, a searing pain filled her body, along with the sensation of blood dripping down her body. Meanwhile outside the palace havoc and chaos was abound. A massive body of water surrounded the palace and the districts below were slightly flooded. Suddenly Naruto felt a pulse of chakra. Suddenly a water sprout erupted from the water. Suddenly the Samahata on Naruto's back began to jerk violently. Naruto removed the blade and quickly brought it in front of him to block the approaching attack, only for his opponent to shatter the legendary blade with his attack. I won't lose to you again Naruto, this time around I will stand victorious. No way. Naruto breathed out in utter surprise. Menma. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Battle Orchestra long version. The 2 combatants separated and jumped back. The 2 of them shot forward at incredible speed as spiraling sphere and ring met, causing a powerful backlash that obliterated the section of the wall they were fighting on. You keep on fighting me in your base state, this battle will be over before you know it. Menma shot after Naruto, throwing a punch to which the blonde blocked using his arm. The shockwave from the force kicked up the dirt and debris off the ground. Naruto immediately countered and threw his own punch, to which Menma countered. Or maybe I should force you to take me more seriously. But that the right Sharingan eye flickered to life in Menma's eye. This can't be the same Menma, can it? Naruto had wondered as the brunette disappeared from sight. Without Obito possessing him, Menma should have been devoid of a Sharingan, but sure enough his counterpart had the copy eye wheel. Either way, now was not the time for him to mess around. Triggering Sage Mode, Naruto jumped back just as Menma ended the technique to attack. Narrowly dodging the attack, he swung his leg upwards and kicked Menma in his torso, sending him flying upwards into the sky. Doing a toad leap, Naruto quickly descended up into the air after Menma, with two Rasengans flaring to life in his hands. Dabbing them upwards, the twin spheres harmlessly passed through the intangible fighter. With Kamui ended, Menma retaliated by bringing his closed fists down upon Naruto, sending him flying back down to the earth. Menma began to descend down after the blonde to continue the assault. Using the body flicker, Naruto reoriented himself and landed on his feet. With a motion from his left, wood began to sprout from the ground, entrapping Menma before he could react. I bought myself some time. Kurama, I need you to prepare me some chakra. Meanwhile, down in Boss Inji's dungeon. X-ray dog intrigue. Toph. Katara cried out, rushing to the side of her former friend after the mysterious man let them out of the dungeon. Why would you do that? She demanded of their rescuer in outrage. Even if Toph had betrayed them, she was still their friend. Especially since this man was the one that convinced them that Naruto had a way of twisting people's heart. The wound is far from fatal. The mysterious figure stated. I wasn't expecting her to shift her body at the last second. The girl is lucky. If she hadn't, it would have been a killing blow. Then again, considering the mentality of these children, it was for the best. This wasn't part of the deal, Aang angrily remarked. Betrayal or not, he would not let someone directly or indirectly be killed if he could help it. All life was precious, and no matter what, he wasn't going to stand by and watch someone die. We don't have time for that. Mysterious figure cut him off. I overheard Naruto discuss executing you and controlling your successor. Having first-hand experience with his ability to manipulate others, you should know that gaining control over the Avatar would align directly in his interests. Besides, rumor has it your former friend is a prodigy bender, and the last thing we need is for her to slow us down. But we can't leave her like this, Sokka argued as well. Well, he didn't exactly have the best relationship with Toph. He wasn't a heartless bastard. A little self-absorbed and thick-headed, but he had a heart behind all that skepticism. Nihonshinja no Jutsu, the mysterious figure immediately put an end to this development by casting the Temple Nirvana technique. The result being a fluttering rain of sleep-inducing, illusory white feathers. As a result, they all fell into an Eden-like tranquil slumber. The bastard, Toph pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the throbbing back from her torso wound through sheer force of will. Probably, the man remarked, chuckling at his own joke. I suppose your blindness saved you from my technique, but borrowed time only lasts for so long. I do have to say one thing hasn't changed, he still has remarkable tastes in women. I suppose he has a thing with women with exotic eyes, he said as a second figure entered the dungeon. I'll take care of the girl, take the Avatar and his two companions as well. You never know when one might mean leverage. He ordered before turning back to Toph. Demon Hunter not ready to die. Who the hell do you think I am? Toph demanded as she moved into an earthbending stance. There is no way in hell I'm letting either of you two do as you please. Toph sent several small fissures at the second intruder, only for the intruder to leap off the ground and dodge each movement. As that was going on, the first one charged towards her and attempted to land a physical blow on her, only for Toph to create earth gauntlets on her arms to protect from his attack. Whatever that attack was, it was definitely fatal as a crack formed in the gauntlet and sending vibrations through her arms. Feeling faintness yet? Fatigue? Maybe difficulty breathing? The mysterious figure asked as Toph felt herself struggling to earthbend and dodge. Poor circulation in your toes. Maybe swelling around the wound. If you give up now, I promise it'll be quick, can't promise painless though. Us shinobi aren't known for painless kills. No way in hell. I'm not dying here. She thought as she sent an earth line at her opponent, to which he quickly formed hand seals and summoned a large snake to take the brunt of the attack. Charging forward, he twisted in the air and scraped Toph's shoulder, damaging her Kai flow in her arm. Toph hissed and stumbled back but held her ground. Using an earth wave, she maneuvered out of the way of her opponent as the large snake's tail whipped at her. From her position, Toph could sense the second intruder making away with Aang, Katara, and Toph. Compounding several columns together and launching them at the person, only for her attack to be interrupted as the first attacker's fingers graze her neck, causing a deep enough wound to cause her to bleed. Stamping her foot into the ground with a powerful shock wave, Toph caused cracks in the earth and pulled up several slabs to act as a shield as she used the distraction to form a double-layer earth dome. I failed. Toph thought as the mysterious attacker's accomplice along with the other gang's members' signature vanished from her radar. Toph was nearly knocked over as the large summoned beast impacted against the earth dome, which was far from sturdy from one she would have made in prime condition. Toph's breathing became lax and she started to sweat. Final Fantasy X2 Yuna's Ballad. Within the walls of Ba Sing Se, the fire quarter and Dai Li were doing their best to minimize water damage and lead the civilians to the crystal cavern so they wouldn't be caught up in the battle. With waves of water repeatedly crashing against the wall with a vast amount spilling over every few minutes or so, water damage was damaging stands and causing property damage to homes. "Don't worry sweetie, it'll be okay," Ty Lee said soothingly to a small child who had been separated from her family among all the chaos. "Mommy, I want my mommy," the little girl wailed as Ty Lee scooped her up in her arms. "Don't worry, I'll find your mommy," she assured the little girl, who started to calm down. Ty Lee looked up and notices Mai approaching towards her, but something was off about her body language. "Just hang tight, okay sweetie," Ty Lee said as she took a deep breath and situated her right arm protectively around the little girl's head. And then at a moment's notice she leaped up into the air as Mai let loose a series of stilettos that pierced Ty Lee's would-be attacker's chest, resulting in him exploding in water. "What the hell?" she wondered as Ty Lee dropped next to her. "Despite not being shinobi, you have the ability to fight. Impressive," the silver-haired young man stated as he casually strolled out of a nearby shop, finishing the last of its shrimp. He was a pretty boy with pale skin and deep emerald-colored eyes that were wide like large bowls. "Are you strong or are you simply more meat to be eaten?" "Shinobi? You must be from the same kind of world as Naruto-sensei," Mai brusquely observed as she drew out more of her knives. "Ty Lee, get out of here," she ordered her friend. But Ty Lee wanted to protest, but then remembered the girl in her arms. "Be careful, Mai. Whoever he is, he's a monster. I've never seen an aura that bloodthirsty," the acrobat remarked before quickly dashing off with the girl. "When I'm done with her, I'm going to enjoy gobbling you up. I am known as Guai Miru, so help me work up a good appetite, okay?" he remarked as he charged forward, drawing the dagger from his waist side going for a throat slash. Mai's senses and reflexes may have been incredible compared to a bender's, but against a shinobi of she might as well have been a genin. Right before the killing blow could be landed, a wall of earth rose up between them, blocking the attack. "Thanks goodness, I made it," Jin said as she shot out from around a corner and joined Mai. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but no time for chit-chat," Mai remarked as Kuairanai drew back his dagger and using his strength smashed right through the earth wall. Mai readied her knives, realizing anything less than lethal force could cost her life. Naruto and Menma continued to trade blows. Slowly but surely Naruto led his counterpart away from Ba Sing Se's populated sectors. Feeling the pull of a Hirishin kunai, Naruto realized it was time for him to finish this fight. "Shit, I can't waste any more time," he decided as he used Kurama's chakra to call upon the chakra shroud. Far from over Rev theory. What nonsense is this? You could hardly control the QP's chakra last time we fought," Menma demanded in outrage as he witnessed Naruto's transformation. The form was unlike anything he had ever seen before. "That's what separates me and you, Menma. I care for more beyond myself, and I don't find it necessary to subjugate my partner. Kurama and I are a team." The expression on Menma's face indicated he had no idea about the QP having a name. Faster than the other Naruto could react, Naruto hit him with a World Rasengan, sending him crashing into one of Ba Sing Se's old districts that had fallen into disrepair. Right now he would use those few precious seconds to follow the pull of the kunai. Meanwhile, back with Toph, she had managed to escape the prison section and make it to the surface while struggling to stay awake. Her wound was growing worse and her strength was declining. Suddenly she was knocked off her feet as the snake caught up to her. Before the creature could sink its fangs into her, a bolt of lightning caught the creature in the face, causing it to recoil back with a pained hiss. "Come on Earthbender, don't tell me you're going to let some beast do you in," Azula jibed before sending a wave of fire at the beast. Though when Toph collapsed and her wound was visible, Azula realized she had to end this battle quick and get Toph medical treatment. While she feared few things, she definitely didn't want to be on the receiving end on an angry Naruto, having to explain how she let a comrade of his die. The beast recovered and bared its fangs only for Azula to shoot several flame discs into its mouth, followed by her propelling herself in the air with a slight jet propulsion burst and bringing down a fire blade into the creature's skull. When it exploded in a puff of smoke, she was startled, but she managed to land on her feet well enough. Azula made her way over to Toph and checked her temperature. She was burning up. Unfortunately, as much as she grew to learn about Naruto's techniques, she along with others hadn't even scratched the surface of number of techniques or fighting styles. Even though she kept a constant gaze all around her for surprise attacks, the last thing she expected was for a figure to materialize from the earth. And as such, she wasn't able to react with two snakes shot out from his sleeve and biting her neck and arm. As a result, its venom was slowly spreading through her body and paralyzing her. "You benders make it far too easy for me," the unknown man jovially remarked, only for Azula, in her last attempt of defiance, blast out a burst of flame of hand before it paralyzed, catching the head of the man on fire and briefly illuminating his face. There were inhuman protrusions in the back of his head, not to mention the left portion of his face was badly damaged. "You shouldn't have done that," the man remarked as the overwhelming amount of killing intent radiating from him even paralyzed the normally fearless Azula. "Sleep," he said as a rather crushing blow rendered her unconscious. "Sensei has probably already sensed my presence. I should have waited until the Avatar was brought into the Fire Nation, but then again I couldn't chance Sensei gaining control of the Fire Nation and adding it to his power. This body is already dying," the unknown man thought as he placed his hand against the left portion of his face. "And at this rate I won't be able to corrupt the Avatar's spirit in enough time for me to take over his body. At best I only have to the end of the summer season before I have to make my next jump. And since I'm moving up my schedule I might as well do a few other things to increase the malice and hatred in this world, but first thing first. Taking measures to distract Naruto-kun and keeping him off my trail." The unknown one thought as he was about to pick up Azula's body, only to be forced to dodge out of the way of an incoming fireball. "Ah yes, the exiled prince. I wonder which one I should go with. Either one is about as good as the other." Menma clutched his ribcage as he forced himself to stay conscious through the pain. "Ooh, stupid fox, start healing," he mentally barked at his containee as he began gathering what chakra he could to flee. He hadn't expected Naruto to be this strong. Looks like he had no choice but to accept that freak's offer to modify his body if he had any hopes of being able to fight Naruto on an even playing field. Kidnapped. Of all things, Azula's heated tirade was filled with distaste. She, Ty Lee, and Mai were in a medical room being attended to by Sho and Nai. "I know my brother can be a bit hopeless, but oh spirits." Ever since hearing about how her brother was kidnapped, she had in a matter of terms bad-mouthing him. "Shut up." Mai silently thought, her eyes closed as her hands balled up into fists. She silently trembled as she repressed the urges. "Why do you always have to do this? It's like Sensei's influence on you take back seat at times. If it hadn't been for Sho and Nai's intervention, they probably wouldn't even be there at the moment. Those attackers were on a different level compared to anything they deal with before. But those guys were really strong. And we never fought anyone like them before," Ty Lee suggested as she twiddled with her fingers. "And we should have been stronger. A surprise attack. This sort of thing will not happen again," Azula stated with a determined gaze. If there was one thing Azula was not used to, then it was losing in anything. Enemy sources repelled or not, this was still a loss. So much for the elite force of Ba Sing Se. The Fire Nation princess rested her forehead on her knuckle. "Shut up. Not to mention all the money that's going to be used to fix up the damages. I did not expect things to go this way. This is going to require some careful thinking in order to work things out." "Shut up." Azula's ear caught the sound of something she thought she'd never hear. "Mai. I don't think I heard you. Mind repeating what you said?" "I said why don't you shut up?" Mai exploded with anger. Ty Lee audibly gasped and covered her mouth, and even Azula raised her eyes in veiled shock. Not once had Mai ever spoken to her in such a matter. You can be so heartless, princess. People have lost their homes, their lives, and even your brother has been kidnapped, and you treat it like some inconvenience. You think you inspire loyalty? Ha. That's a joke. When Sensei left you buried yourself in your technique and your plans. When he came back I thought you would go back to the way you were, but I guess I was wrong. The marks of your royal training are still as evident as ever. You think yourself a great leader and solider. Well, the truth of the matter is you're just like your father, a monster masquerading as a person in human skin. Ty Lee shirked away in fear, expecting a rather explosive and violent reply from Azula. Mai braced herself as well for a punishing attack when nothing happened. "No matter where I go. No matter how much time passes, I can't escape that label." Something was definitely wrong. Azula's voice didn't hold its usual confidence or cold edge. No, it felt hollow and lost. "You're only a little girl, yet you already see people as tools. So cruel and heartless. I failed you. You're no longer my daughter, my little girl. Now you're his, a monster masquerading as a person in human skin." "I'm not a monster, I'm not," she whispered as her body seized on her. And that was when the memory in the very back of her mind flickered to life. It was shortly after Ba Sing Se was taken over and the Avatar captured. Naruto had slipped away, and curious, Azula decided to follow him. The last thing she expected was for him to visit her imprisoned uncle. It's funny really, and where was her uncle or her mother to make sure she didn't steep too far into the darkness if Oz issues were so apparent? He asked as a look of guilt flashed across Iroh's face. "I'm not blind to the darkness in Azula, that much is apparent, but I'll be damned to sit back and say she's a lost cause because of something like her heritage. To treat her like she's some monster in human skin. After all, I inherited the will of the one known as the failure, yet I strived and became something greater than that. To abandon Azula without a fight because that is what destiny decides is not something I can stomach." He paused, taking a moment to compose himself. "Iroh, you put your faith in a kid who was told of his destiny years too soon. He is uncertain and soft. He is a human being, a flawed individual heralded as a god as the problem solver to the people's problems. How will these people ever grow and learn to fend for themselves if they place all their burdens and hope in one person? I'm not a monster, I'm not the flooding of memories the day her mother walked out of her life, and for the first time since she was a child, Azula began to cry. A stream of thin hot tears began to seep down her cheeks. Hey Azula. Monster huh? She asked, her hands trembling. I expected from the soldiers and even from my mother, but I never expected it from my so-called friend. Friend? Mai barked out. You considered yourself my friend. From day one you abused your power and authority over Ty Lee and me. You treated me as nothing more than a slave, a tool to use however you please. And for a short while you started to change when Sensei's teachings started to affect you, but once he left you changed back even colder than ever. How did you think I felt? Mai asked, breaking through her own emotional walls as tears threatened to fall. What sort of friend holds the other hostage? What sort of friend threatens the life and livelihood of others for their own end? Not once did you ever stop to consider how others might feel because of your actions. Do you have any idea what it was like for me living in fear of you for years? But the one person I leaned to for support gone, leaving me essentially alone. Having to put up with just about anything you wanted. Knowing that you could do just about anything to me and I wouldn't be able to stop it. I hated you so much for it, and I hate myself for being so weak. That even with Sensei's training I still feared you. So strike me down if you want, I'm just tired of being nothing more than some doll everyone can dress up whatever way they want. With that Mai stormed out of the room. So let me guess. You hate me too? Azula bitterly asked Ty Lee, who had been relatively silent throughout the emotional situation. Oh Azula, never. Ty Lee responded, shaking her head. I could never hate you. Even if no one else was willing to look, I knew there was and still is good in you. Naruto saw it in you and I do as well. I forced you to come with me against your will. You were happy where you were, but I threatened your life. Don't take me for a fool, Ty Lee. Why would anyone? Azula was cut off when Ty Lee of all things had kissed her. She was so shocked that she didn't fight it. No, instead, she gave into the kiss and the sweet sensations of Ty Lee's lips. Suddenly, as quick as it came, the kiss ended when Ty Lee pulled away. Please don't think I'm weird. She pleaded. Even though you were mean like Mai said at times, I knew you could be nice if you had the right motivation. We can't change the past, but we can make a better future, can't we? She asked as Azula pondered what she learned for a moment. I need to be alone, she informed the acrobat, who nodded. Oh okay, I'll be in my room if you need me. Ty Lee responded as she left the room and Azula alone to her thoughts. Ty Lee kissed me. But surely enough she is attracted to Naruto as well, that much was obvious. What is wrong with me? Why do I feel so? What is this I'm feeling? Azula was losing her hold on her control. Ever since she was a child she had an obsession with control and perfection. What hope did a girl with deep and emotional problems have with a parent like Azai? Now more than ever she needed someone to help and guide her. As much as she wanted to, she felt like turning to Naruto could either be a good or bad decision. Lady Toph will be fine, but I suggest she doesn't push herself for the next few days. As for Princess Azula, her injuries weren't too serious, so she'll be okay by tomorrow. The medical professional Naruto brought in had informed him as she exited the room. Despite the good news, his eyes held an angry and cold expression. He had failed them. Azula, Ty Lee, and Mai had been placed in danger. Toph had been hurt and several lives had been lost in the attack. Menma, next time we meet you won't be walking away alive. With that mental promise Naruto went off to settle things. The hero of the nations, glad you could make it. The cloaked male stated as Naruto dropped down on the ground. Like most of the Earth Kingdom, the terrain consisted of mostly rocks, cactus and desert for miles on end. Forests were far and few in between for the largest of the three remaining nations, thanks to the war. Are you the one? Naruto asked plainly as he focused on keeping his temper by check. No, hi, no hello. Quite rude. The nameless stated with a chuckle. I'm disappointed you don't recognize me. Was I that forgettable? To me you're just trash that needs to be incinerated. This time Naruto was ready, instantly triggering Sage mode as he dashed forward. The nameless one performed a replacement on a nearby boulder. The rock that was about the size of the air bison grumbled into a rock of smaller rocks and dusts. If he had been 1/20th of a second later he could have been hit by that. I don't remember you ever being so sloppy. Your emotions must be in quite the state. The nameless one spoke with a chuckle. Who are you? He felt so familiar, yet nothing gave away the identity of this nameless robed man. Now, despite masking my voice, I would have thought in some way you would have recognized me. All those that were capable of taking over a body were either dead or reformed. This man, was this who he thought it was? Black Zetsu? I think you insult me by comparing me to that weed. The nameless man stated. Those who have come for revenge usually give me their life story beforehand, so you'll forgive me for not remembering off the bat. Is this really an opportunity to make jokes right now? Trust me, I can multitask. Naruto remarked as he charged forward and slashed at the man's face faster than he could react. His disguise falling off to reveal a humanoid creature of some sorts. Dull gray skin, lacking a nose or ears and sharp, kitsune-like shaped eyes revealing strange eyes. He saw something of the Byakugan and the Rinnegan in its shape, but he didn't recognize it. A moment later the Nameless was in front of Naruto. A palm strike connected with Naruto's shoulder as it exploded with pain. Naruto hissed and jerked back, it felt like his shoulder had been blown apart as he was sent flying. It was like the Gyuukin, but instead of closing his Tenketsu it was blown apart. Ansho Tenin. The Nameless man held up his hand and chakra pulsed from it. Naruto suddenly found himself being pulled towards the Nameless man. Shinra Tensei. Naruto took a gamble and thankfully enough the two jutsu cancelled each other out. Naruto quickly formed an Adama Rengen and charged forward. Ton. Repshim. The force of the Gale Palm had slowed Naruto's movement. The Nameless man moved out of the way of the attack and used the Great Fireball technique. The fireball connected against Naruto and exploded. The flames soon extinguished to reveal a slightly singed Naruto. Most of his shirt had been burned off. The Nameless man brought his hands into a triangle as he prepared to form a compressed ball of gravity. One problem with your strategy. Naruto called out as the ground below the Nameless man began to crack. You're using the strategies of people I've already beaten. Out of the ground exploded a giant snake. The Nameless man avoided the creature using the body flame technique. He reappeared behind Naruto only for the blonde to be substituted with one of his clones. But that is right, I triggered the Sharingan. Kamui. He called out as space and time distorted in front of him, drawing the man in. Rog. The space around the man began to distort and he found himself being drawn in by the endless void. He had no choice. Izangai. His left eye was soon closed as he was able to escape the void. The moment he escaped from the void he was sent flying by a chakra-coated punch. His head jerked away as his skull cracked from the force of the blow. He bounced off the ground a few times before finally coming to a stop. The Nameless one gathered his bearings and prepared to counter with Shinra Tensei. When his body refused to move he caught sight of Naruto's alternate forms out the corner of his eye. He was his with a multitude of elemental dragons in succession wearing down his endurance. I'll wipe you from this kingdom. The Nameless man, now lacking both eyes in exchange for Izangai, braced himself for the attack. What the hell was going on? That second Izangai should have bought him time to escape. There should have been a body left for Uzumaki to be satisfied about. It was then he recalled something Naruto had said. One problem with your strategy. Naruto called out as the ground below the Nameless man began to crack. You're using the strategies of people I've already beaten. The Nameless man then realized something. The way Naruto went about attacking with his others and what he said earlier. He must have found a countermeasure to his Izangai. But how? Though, this body was modified enough for a single encounter, this would be pushing the limits. Whether he lived or died all depended on luck. The Nameless man took the gamble and decided to try and absorb the chakra from Naruto's Bijuu Rasengan. The sickly, incomplete shell was soon exploded, shredded to pieces by the attack. The body was scattered into pieces by the attack. Now it was time to find Zuko and get back to Ba Sing Se. Elsewhere near Chameleon Bay, the partner of the Nameless ones had left unceremoniously dropped them on the ground. Katara was the first to recover from the state the gang was put in. Take us back. Take us back now. She demanded. Your friend is fine. The cloaked individual spoke. At least, my partner's attack wasn't lethal considering me missed. It wasn't a request. Katara snapped, her emotions getting the best of her as she drew water from her water skin and lashed out at the individuals. She did nothing but shred the disguise of the person, revealing a young woman with pale skin and long light-colored hair that reached down to her ankles. Her lips were red like rubies, but her eyes were as blue and as cold as ice, with two small devil-like horns sticking from her head. I advised you don't do that again. The woman cautioned in a melancholic tone. A slight frown formed on the woman's face. He's late. It appears the Uzumaki boy killed that body after all. The woman shook her head and chuckled. He's going to be rather pissed. That body was the only trace of Uzumaki DNA left in the world. So much for having the Samsara eye for his new ultimate body. Oh well, I'll wake up the backup body later. Who are you people? What do you want with Aang? And what does Naruto have to do with all this? This woman didn't seem interested in attacking her, but Katara didn't let down her guard. She had no idea what was going on, but she knew running head first into a situation without knowledge could get one killed. Uzumaki, Naruto and my partner have a history. My only interest is to see the individual who defeated the one heralded as a goddess by your species in action. Either way, the victor will be a deciding force of the course of the war and the ruling faction of this planet. She replied. But maybe Aang can help. He's the Avatar, surely there's some way we can help. Fight alongside us, help us stop the Fire Nation. She urged. You will refer to me as Yujiro-mono-sama. She insisted, completely disregarding what Katara had just said. Aang and Sokka began to stir. Tell your companion to get their bearings ready. I heard this area, this Chameleon Bay has been experiencing a lot of fighting between Water Tribe and Fire Nation. We might find some of your people yet. She said, going to the edge of the cliff and focusing her vision until she could see the Water Tribe ship. Despite being savages they would make rather nice sacrifices more or less. It'll also help lull the Avatar and those who follow him into a false state of security. It's just a matter of sneaking into the Fire Nation and while being hidden. Back in Ba Sing Si Mai found herself in the kitchen. She was starving, and the aroma of something delectable garnered her attention. She was quite surprised to see the girl who almost shared her name finish putting sliced fish cake on a large bowl of ramen. I see, I was wondering where you were. I never got to say thank you for saving our lives. Mai informed the mute. Mai remembered the girl showing up and slicing off one of that crazy eater's arm before he could complete the attack. This same girl effortlessly scooped her engine up and fled before the man could continue his attack. Mai merely spared Mai a glance, smiling before going back to cooking. You know, for years I've wished for a friend that couldn't talk. Mai turned to Mai and beeped her head in confusion. Now that I got that wish I never realized how annoying it would be seeing as you can't tell me your thoughts and I'm not a mind reader. Mai's stomach grumbled and she scowled. The mute merely fixed her a bowl of ramen and offered Mai some. Thank you. Quickly finding an eating instrument Mai took one bite after another. To hell with manners and what she was thought to do. So much had happened in the past few days she was finding it difficult to care about not caring. After finishing the bowl Mai let out a content sigh before saying a few more words to the mute and left the kitchen. Suddenly Ty Lee's voice carried down the hallway, gaining Mai's attention. They're back. Naruto and Zuko are back. That was all Mai needed to hear as she made a beeline for the front gate. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.